Welcome to Moving with Life. This is episode number 23. I am Andy Acosta. My friend Eddie Sines will be joining me today. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for lending us your ears. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave reviews. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So episode 23 is Offensive Pivot Part 2. This is a continuation of last week's episode, Offensive Pivot, but there is minimal to no redundancy. Eddie wasn't able to join me and Brian last week for the initial episode, so I wanted to take advantage of this week and get Eddie caught up so that next week we can continue to dive into these questions that I found via YouTube from Tim Ferriss himself. Eddie did bring some great points of view, some great perspective, a lot of things that I for sure didn't think about, which is why I foresaw isolated talk with Eddie being necessary. We dive into some music business, some of Eddie's day-to-day, which includes teaching students, new and current, and then communicating with the boss, maybe finding some ideas, developing some ideas, some options that can lead to just a more efficient way about going through his day, through these summer camps, and then stuff that we can use for the team as well. So without further ado, here is Moving with Life. So let's plug this thing. Congrats on your new record, Eddie.
Thanks, man.
I feel like it's like jittery and then like excitement and then also, what's the word I'm looking for? Like just a relief.
Yes.
To get to the next section.
Onward and forward and progress in every synonym you can think of with that. Yeah. I'm super excited it's finally out, and I'm just super excited the release show's done. Like we had a great big old ball last night. Played to an awesome packed house with really attentive audience there.
Yes.
So it was a really great night. It was really special. And I'm so glad that it's done. I love everyone. Thank you for coming out, but I'm so glad that we're done.
The initial release, which even the release, just planning the release has taken a few months to just coordinate and make sure, we still have the full band show to come, but at least the day of the initial release was good, and you pretty much mentioned this at the show last night, where being grateful for the prelude, and it ended up being perfect because people were there to listen. They were able to hear the lyric, more than anything. There's some footage I was able to see from my Facebook live feed, and then like some stuff that my parents took, and just listening to it makes more sense to open up a record like that through an acoustic show than it would be a full band show.
It was a really great show, and yeah, I tried to put together a full band show at another venue on that day. Kept falling through. So I just said, you know what? We're just going to do the main one at the Prelude. We're just going to do it there. We're going to do it acoustic. It's going to be awesome. We're going to make the most of it. And it far exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
Like way far. So it was a really great night. It was really awesome. It was definitely one of the most fun times I've ever had on a stage before. That's for sure.
Yes, indeed. Like I said, relieving. I still have that just overwhelming sense of relief.
Yeah.
for you, and more for you. I mean, I'm but a mere piece of the puzzle of this whole thing, and at least I feel it, and that's something I was telling. I think Gonzo and whoever else I was talking with last night, where because at some point you mentioned kind of feeling a little jittery on stage, and I don't know if it was you feeding to me or maybe me feeding to you, because I felt exactly the same way. It took me 20 minutes to finally settle in and okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, at some point it just started flowing. Like I think when we started, I was like, okay, we're 3 songs in, 4 songs in, 5 songs in,
Yeah.
And at some point it was just like, we're here.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Just kind of settled in. Yeah, I wasn't really nervous at all. I was saying this at the show. I wasn't really nervous at all yesterday and yesterday morning, and it didn't really hit me with the jitters until really after sound check, till the lights went out or not went out, but until the lights dimmed and everything was set for the night and people were starting to roll in. And man, we started a whole over 45 minutes late, almost a whole hour late,
Yeah.
because people just kept rolling in, and well, Alex Quantz opened up the show, and Alex always, not always, but also works there at the Prelude. He helps out with the kitchen, and so he had to run food like at the same time. So like we had to delay the show by a whole hour so that everybody could get their food, which was the greatest and worst problem to have. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it all worked out. It was a really great show. It was one of the best shows I've ever been a part of. That's for sure.
Yep.
I say been a part of like it was secondary to me, and it's like my show.
Man, but well, I mean, still, maybe it's something that's not pondered on enough. But something like that, an event like that, it's still also your point of view. You used to have your point of view of looking out. These people coming to see you. It's just the dichotomy perspective as far as like people from the audience, and then getting your perspective of how just things going through your mind as we're flowing through the show and trying to get this trying to let this be a successful night, which it was. And something I was saying, Gonzo, I think JJ and Denver, like when we were there at the table at the booth, I was even telling them that this is good for the Prelude, this is good for Eddie, like the turnout. As far as the turnout, like it's like this is like it couldn't be more of a like two-way street for last night. You know, venue and artist. Like it was awesome to see that as well.
Really worked out for everyone overall. It was a great night, filled with tons of great vibes.
I'm trying to look up. Oh, here it goes. So Alex Quantz is the same gentleman we had on episode 15, Fun at Its Best. So if you
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I was looking up right now. Yeah, because we've had him on at least once, and there we talked literally everything from microphones to jiu-jitsu and everything in between. So that was a fun episode. That one took place at South Padre Island because we were out for a private event. So Eddie, last week it was me and Brian, and leading up to last week, and then going into this week. So this is basically part 2 of Offensive Pivot, and leading up to last week's recording, I felt like sometimes we don't have enough content, and more because we're doing, and it also makes sense because we're 25-year-old. We only still have so much to say. Because we've only lived 25 years. We've only experienced so much in like the workforce and whatnot. So I went through the internet. I ended up still retracting back to Tim Ferriss, where I got these 17 questions. And then Jim Rohn, who's he's I would say life coach as well, but he was basically Tony Robbins' mentor.
Okay.
So through his and through Tim Ferriss, I then took all of Tim Ferriss' questions, and then I developed a couple of my own. So, and the questions that I have here, and we're only going to go through a few of them. We're just going to get up to where we went up to last week so that you can basically catch up, and hopefully next week we'll continue all 3 of us. That'd be the goal. That'd be the optimal goal. So, anyways, well, let's just jump into the questions. And let me just give you some context. So, Jim Rohn says you should label your goals in three specific categories: economic, which includes like your income, your production, like things you do to have financial, just financial movement. That's what I call it. And then things you want, and he says little and big things, because he says that back in the day he used to write like maybe like he wants a specific house or he wants a specific car, and he said at some point he just wrote down everything. If he wanted to go buy a book, he wrote it in that list of stuff, and then later on he would then categorize it like long term, short term, and so on, right? So he has that, and then personal development, which is the examples he gave was like becoming a speaker, learning a new language, becoming more skillful in whatever your tool of the trade is, right? And so one of the terms he has is called long range goals, which is the same thing. It's the same thing as long term goals. And so he talks about one of the questions he brings up is he's like, what are my dreams in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10, 20, 40, for the rest of my life? What are my dreams? So the question I came up with, this is the first question we led off with last week, was have your dreams changed since graduating college? What do you want to see? Whether it's a physical place, in yourself, the future, your family, given that context of personal development, economic, and things you want. Since you've graduated college, have your dreams changed, or have they just how have they maneuvered since then? Because you've been out of college since 2014, so it's 3 complete years now that you've been out, and you've now experienced a whole lot of new in 3 years.
Hmm. I don't think my dreams or goals or aspirations have changed, but like how they revolve around important people around me is where I see things starting to play factors. Like as we're getting older, I'm starting to think about like, like do I want to be married one day? Like do I want a family? Do I want kids? And the answer to all that was absolutely yes for me, and I want all those things. So the dreams and the goals and the aspirations all kind of have to find place for that too. And so I think for me right now at this point in my life, I'm starting to think about where the balance of all that fits in with career, family, and personal life, and things of the sort. Just how they balance and how they revolve around each other and interact with each other and in healthy ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really hard subject to tackle for me. I feel like sometimes because like music is not at all really like an easy career to have when it comes
Right.
to maintaining personal life
Yeah,
with relationships and family
right,
and stuff
exactly.
like that.
Because even you said it's for sure one of the most selfish careers you can go into, and it's so crazy to me because it's also hard to sever.
Mhm.
It's not something that you just sever. You don't. It's not become a doctor and just quitting from the hospital and moving somewhere else or doing something else.
Yeah.
At least for me, I know I'm positive it's the same for you and the musicians that we work with. It's like it's not as easy as it. It's simple but not easy in the sense of like it's not something that I want to sever either. It's like just what we do. So yeah, if you want to continue
Right.
on that.
Well, no, not really too much to say on it.
Yeah.
This is all kind of happening for me more like within like the past like year and a half or
Mhm.
so, I guess. But it's just kind of all like coming to me more lately.
Yeah.
It's been something that's been on my mind for a long time, but something that's been more prevalent on my mind. I feel like just the older I'm getting. So it's weird, and it really makes me wonder how people actually balance it out.
Yeah.
Like, just for example, Cody Johnson and his wife, and they have a newborn, and
Mhm.
well, then there's like the Jason Isbell example where Jason is married to another musician, and they play together.
Mhm.
So he's married to Amanda Shires, and they have a baby girl together, but like they travel together.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
all the
together
time,
a
like,
lot. Yeah, they're
Yeah, like
constantly
they
together.
have a career like together basically.
Mhm.
He backs her up and she backs him up, and they're on the road together. They take their little girl on the road with them, and when they don't, like grandma watches them or whatever, and
Yep.
so there's that, and so just I don't know, seeing like different examples of where it's worked for other people, and just in thinking about how I could maybe emulate that, or just how to go about mixing in my personal life with my career in the
Mhm.
healthiest manner.
Yeah.
But I'm sure like there's no necessarily a right answer,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of it too just depends on the missing parts of the equation, well, who's my spouse and how do they behave and how do they
Yeah.
handle all this, and so and then the kids factor, having kids, and just like there's a lot of variables that I do not know. There's a lot of X,
Right.
Y's, and
Yeah.
Z's.
There's
So,
plenty of X's
yeah.
still to be fulfilled and answered. Definitely, and that's probably one of the I would say a commonality between musician and military because even Jocko talks about it. Where his wife was socially independent. She when he was out, whether it's training or at war, in Iraq, she held the line. At home, she did it on her own, and essentially, it's very similar in different context. A very lighter context of being free in the United States of America, but the spouse, holding the line at home, while we go out and work and do what we do what we do. Essentially, like I said, it's not something that can be severed. I have to argue. I'd have to argue it's not something that can be severed.
Yeah.
Um,
Not to jump like too far off of it, but
Mhm.
it makes me think about just the classic way of how that runs. Like if you go back to, I don't want to say like old times, but I mean just to like tribal times, with like Native Americans and their culture back in the day and how they behaved. They were, I mean, some of them were nomadic, but for the ones that stuck around in the same place for a good bit, I mean that's the women did. They like harvested, or they did something at the homestead, I guess, or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah, right.
or took care of the children, or did whatever at home to to make that life 100%. And then while the men would go out on their hunting trips, and then they go out together and get food for the tribe, and then come back several days later with hopefully a substantial amount to feed everyone. So it just kind of reminds me of that, like just the breadwinners, got to go out and
essentially,
make
yeah, essentially, and that's probably like the breadwinners. I haven't heard that term in quite a minute, but I do have to agree. Bring the it's like you have to work, and an interesting thing is like thinking now as we're talking, as you say, breadwinner. Those people who have 9 to 5s that have families, and then a lot of times now you have to take you have to take work home with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, it's kind of the same thing as being out on the road. And, because if you're at home, your mind's not at home because your mind's wandering out of what work you need to get done and whatever. So, yeah, as far as Brandon was like, well, it's not necessarily justified to be out on the road for a month, but it's like, well, if I wasn't on the road, I'd probably be grinding it out here at home. 9 to 5 plus any extra that needs to get done, for a successful business, especially in your case as a CEO, entrepreneur, that's what I call it. As an artist, you're an entrepreneur, you're a CEO, you own the business, you own your records, your music, and it's very corollary, it's very parallel to that.
Yeah.
That way of working, that's just the way it is. Like I would say even me now with trying to do this podcast along with working with you, and then working at 9 Round at the gym, and now the gym's actually not making a transition, but they're gonna have some add-ons, which is really cool. Which I can't announce yet, but I'm looking forward to that add-on. Anyways, but just that, how much hours it takes to make a successful business, and I'll take it back to social media, where everybody just sees that post of like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and it's like, yeah, how many hours did it take to lead up to that moment, whatever it may be, Today I did get a lot of compliments from I guess it's all on the Facebook Live. I went live last night, and they're like, hey, like, it looked awesome. I'm like, oh, I appreciate it, and it's like that, but that, it's those 2 hours but they get to see an hour and 15 minutes of the show, but how long were we there? We were there for a few hours before that, and then and then preparation and everything else that just goes into the whole.
It's like, how long were we there just for sound check? Like a whole 2 hours before that.
Yeah.
And then how long were we rehearsing for that? Well, several hours before that, several days before it. Mm-hmm. And then, how much longer in that conglomerate, time, or conglomerated, is that a word? Conglomerated time? I don't know.
It is now.
Whatever. It is now. Just that group of time, it's like, okay, we rehearsed maybe a total of like 3 or 4 hours, but over the span of like 3 or 4 days. Like we did that separately, and it took a bit, about like a month before total. And then not only that, but then, we rehearsed like full band, and, there's just like a lot of prep work that's gone into this, like just months and, maybe even a year by now prior to, leading up to this show.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like last night, my godmother made it to the show, and we were talking, I said, man, it's been a long time coming. And then we went into like how long more or less the record took, which it took like maybe a year and a few months. To like from the first recording of the first 4 songs to then finishing it up last summer.
Yeah, probably like 2.
Closer to 2. Okay, so let's say 2 years. And I said, man, I think I said a year and a half. So I said that. So because of that, I'm like, man, it's been interesting journey seeing this. And I'm like, for me, I felt like I've waited 5 years for like this particular moment of being part of a project that is self-sustaining for now. It's self-sustaining. People are out here to listen. And it's like, yeah, like, I've been playing live it'll be 5 years this November that I've been playing live shows, period. And the year and a half prep, 2 years prep, leading up to today, and then the previous 4 years for me, leading up to that, just going through being in one band, then being just a live musician, now being in with you, it's been 5 years in the making. It's taken just going and playing and doing show and more shows and more shows, to finally feel this excitement and this relief all at the same time. And it's like, so like just contradictory in my head, like, oh my God. But anyways, that's legit. Yeah. Going back to the root of the question being, have your dreams changed since graduating college? It's I guess where we're just falling now. You're saying like now you're pondering on like the family situation and what that would take.
Yeah.
What that would take, what that would do. And it's funny because I have my cousin here, and you guys seen him as you walked in. and we're building basically essentially we're building a home gym like literally piece by piece because like shit's expensive. Like I didn't realize how freaking expensive bumper plates, which are the thicker rubber plates, like they're expensive as hell. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, okay, so I need that, a couple kettlebells, whatever. And so I'm having him like, cause the thing is like his dad will give him some money, and I'm like, well, give me half, because like and I'm being very truthful to him. I'm like, money's not an issue necessarily, but I can't do this shit on my own.
Yeah.
You know, I cannot do. I need your help. And I've talked to my parents about this too, as far as like, I just need your help to build this thing, because if we can give Luis these tools, and if I can get him to maximize them, you know, he already has a promising future. That I already foresee that now, taking it to that next level of giving him that full potential of like, okay, you are actually physically ready to then even be considered to play college football. You know, that's his goal right now, so that's what we're working on. But anyways, here's a question from Tim Ferriss. What would you have, do, or be if you had $10 million?
Man, if I had $10 million, man, well, probably use all that, not use all that money, but use a good chunk of it to invest back into my career, because money is like gasoline for a music career, pretty much. You know, it's like fire to gasoline. You know, it just like gets it all going, sets it ablaze. So, I mean, any major person that you know or have heard of has had some major backing in some way.
Yep.
For Taylor Swift, I mean, her family is set. I mean, you know, like dad's like a CEO or CFO or something of some company.
CEO, isn't it?
CEO.
Oh, don't they own Swift Trucking? Like
That's what I've heard, but I don't know how true it is.
Same. Okay, same. I have the same little like pondering, but let's say he's affiliated with them. You know,
Right.
They've been around for a long time.
But either way, they come from, you know, a good background. So she had all the funding she needed. And so, you know, she was able to go to Nashville at an early age and you know, find mentors and get her whole career kickstarted with that. But I mean, again, like money is fuel for like, it's huge. You need it.
Yeah.
Like Josh Abbott band, like Josh Abbott like talks about sometimes about how he's like still up to his eyes and you know, to his eyeballs in debt, you know, and still owes investors a lot of money back and everything of that sort. So it's not a cheap career by any means. It takes a lot to just like thousands of dollars just to make a record, like 5 to 6 figures to make a record.
Right.
And then, you know, and that includes like recording it and then putting it out, releasing it, like PR and like distribution and, you know, everything of that sort that we could kind of get on a you know, on a rabbit trail on. But
Yeah.
anyway, but I'd probably use it a good bit for that. And honestly, I don't feel like I need $10 million. Like, it's a lot of money.
That's fair. So let me give you some context.
I'd probably put a good amount away too, just like as a safety net.
Right. Absolutely.
Whatever I feel like I didn't need, probably donate it.
Right. That's very similar. Let me say something. Very similar to kind of what we agreed on last week with when I was talking with Brian about this. Because the context that Tim Ferriss gives is like, he said $10 million, but Tim says it can be whatever you know you need now, like whatever you know, like man. Because one thing he mentions, it's called total monthly income, which then you then simplify that to total daily income. And usually when you get to that level, you then see how feasible it is to reach a goal. And essentially, you still have to go one goal at a time, right? You don't think you're gonna. It's like no. So that makes sense. There were 10 minutes like, because even when I did my little like scenario in my head and I talked about it on this podcast, I was like, man, I still have like 6 million left. You know, like and which I then mentioned the same thing as far as like for me it'd be education. That's kind of like my angle as far as what kind of charities I want to look into and or develop or create myself. But yeah, given, you know, all the scenarios, like just to give you a little bit, Eddie's, I said I would invest X amount for you. I would invest X amount in Brian's business. I would then let my parents retire whole, like done. I then put money into my investment account. And even after that, I still, like I said, I still have like 5-6 million left. It's like, okay, look, you know, it's like, it's crazy to me how people use that money. You know, like when they have it and they buy a $5 million house. Like
Yeah,
you know,
that when people buy mansions or Lamborghinis or like excessive
yeah,
like
$300,000
expenses.
cars or whatever.
Yeah, I never understood. I mean, maybe it's because I've never lived that big,
Yeah,
so I don't
yeah,
get
yeah.
it. But I just don't like feel the need or see the need to like be living anything outside that's just comfortable.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, definitely. And yeah, like I said, retracting to the original question, Tim Ferriss does say that whatever you going back to tying in Jim Rohn, whatever you want. Okay, how much is that going to cost? And then breaking it down to see how you can feasibly reach that goal after X amount of time.
Yeah.
But yeah. So let me give you another question. So this question says, what if I did the opposite for 48 hours? Now let me give you some context real quick, just so I can give you an angle as far as what I mean by opposite for 48 hours. Because the way Tim says it, it's not necessarily for personal development. For him, when he was working for a company, I think he was out in Silicon Valley, and he was a salesman. So he started trying to figure out, like, man, he wanted more success. Like that was his thing. He wanted, because he said at the time he was doing a lot more cold calls, cold emails, like just like, hey, I'm this person, if you're interested, get back to me, whatever. So he noticed that his bosses work 9 to 5. The CEO that he wanted to become in contact with work 9 to 5. The secretaries work 9 to 5. His colleagues, his other salesmen, work 9 to 5. He's like, well, what if I did the opposite for 48 hours? So he would cold call only, I believe, between 7:30 and 9 a.m. And then from 9 to 5, he would cold email only. And then from 6:30 to 8:30, he would cold call again. And he says by doing that, it actually gave him leverage and actually got more acquaintances, and he was able to get more meetings done and he had more success. So if you can think of something like that, maybe in whether, and it's going to be past experience or current experience, of what would it be if you did the opposite of whatever you're thinking for 48 hours?
Well, to start small, I'd be buying a lot less Topo Chico if I did the opposite for 48 hours.
Yeah.
I probably drop like $5 on Topo Chico a day.
Okay.
But yeah, it's because I stop in the Stripes and then I get at least 2 or 3 for the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so good.
Yeah, yeah.
The twisted lime flavor specifically. But anyway, that'd be for starters. Man, I don't know. I can't really say. Like, I have like such a set schedule right now that I feel like if I did the opposite.
That maybe we can go into that. And you don't have to think about it too deep. It's just giving just a general sense of, if you have a set schedule now, if you flipped one thing, or if you changed one thing for those 48 hours, what do you think would happen? Or maybe like instead of, maybe in a sense, kind of like what do you think would happen if you cold called specific times as opposed to maybe just cold emailing or whatever, that type of thing, now that you're trying to break into, radio and trying to get in contact with new venues, maybe tying into that?
Well, I'm actually going to tie it in a different way.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, at work, teaching lessons, we have our summer camps rolling now. So I've been going to work like 7:30, 7:40 in the morning.
Yeah.
And being there and working summer camps till around noonish or a little before. So that takes up all of my morning, and then I'll come back in the afternoon and teach lessons. And my biggest thing with that lately is it's left me feeling more tired than I am usually.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I hate working with kids. I absolutely love working with kids. But like waking up at 7:30, 7:40, what I was used to before summer rolled around was, I'd get up and I'd grind out my music career stuff. Right, I'd be like emailing or be on the phone or working on a Photoshop for like a concert poster or something, or writing a song or doing something to be burning the fire for the music career.
Right.
And now my time has become a little more limited on that because of summer camps, and then I still have to go back and maintain my my private lesson schedule. Mm-hmm. So my time for that has diminished. With all that being said, getting up at 7:30 in the morning to go work. Before that, and then getting there at 7:30 to work, again, just has left me exhausted. And again, not that I hate working with kids, but I just don't want to work with kids at 7:30 in the morning. Like, as I feel like it takes a special person to do that.
Thank you, teachers.
Yes,
full-time teachers.
I was going to say we call those teachers.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think more than anything, it just it's kind of bothersome because, the first week of summer camp is fine. They're in 2-week sessions, and then the first week is fine because it's still very fresh and the material is fresh for them. By the time the second week rolls around, it's a lot of reiteration of what they're learning, so it becomes a little more like monotonous.
Yeah, and then attention spans too.
Yeah,
as far as
attention
kids.
spans.
How young do you guys go for these camps?
Well, we have little rockers that are like a kindergarten, first, second grade age. So I guess 5 to 8 or so.
Okay.
And then for the bigger groups, we have like I guess from about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think we stop at 13. I think we cap it at 13.
Okay.
But so that's the age group more or less, and we usually split them up by like the smaller ones and then the bigger ones. But yeah, the second week just gets to start being really monotonous, and I feel like if I flipped everything for 48 hours, I'd much rather teach the private lessons in the morning and knock those out, and then go get some lunch, and then kind of have enough energy to come back and keep the summer camps from being too monotonous, and just kind of bringing a spunkier energy to it, because then like everyone's still waking up in the morning, even the kids are still like waking up in the morning, and it's kind of like difficult to get them going sometimes.
All right, kids, and the whole like giddy cover, essentially cover, act.
Pretty much, either that or I would flip everything back to how it was before, to where I'm taking care of my music business grinding stuff from at least until lunchtime, till noon, and then come back, do a summer camp, and then do lessons, and then go home.
Knock it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can also see where that. I mean, essentially, it's all day because you're there 7:30. Your lessons go to at minimum 6 p.m.
Oh
if
man,
not
even,
later.
even further now.
Yeah.
Like it's
8:30.
it's an average 8:30 or 9 o'clock now.
Right after the summer.
Yeah.
So like, that. Oh man. Okay. Yeah. Totally on board with that. And I think, man, that'd be interesting to think about, of having the summer camp right before private lessons, so that you can kind of transition, and time wise also, it gives you a little more freedom. And also, for my biggest thing is decompressing to recompress.
That's exactly kind of what I was trying to get at with that. You put it perfectly. That's pretty much what I was trying to nail with. Like, if I do the opposite for 48 hours, I might have a little more energy. So.
Yeah, right, yeah. No, yeah. Man. See, that's something I wish like we could like test out. Like, hey, boss, can we have the summer camp in the afternoon? Like not in the morning. Now, essentially, because for these camps, they're not necessarily all students, are they? Or are they all students only?
Well, I mean, like it's
you can sign up the your child and be a part of the camp only, or right?
Well, so it's, I mean, like they come in from like 8 a.m. to about noon every day.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, and then we work with them all morning, and so they'll spend about 45 minutes per instrument, and then about the last hour they'll work in their bands, at least for the second week.
Right.
But, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only thing I was thinking. It was like, man, because if there's any new kids that you have to like, essentially, maybe catch them up versus the kids who have private lessons already, and maybe have some background, or is it? I don't know if I asked this correctly. As far as like for the summer camp, if my child's not a private student, can I sign her up?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Anyone can sign up. Even if you take private lessons there, and you can still do it, and if you don't, you can still do it.
Okay.
But if anything though, I probably prefer the kids that have never played an instrument in their lives before, because it's a lot easier to keep the energy going. Like, for example, like this past summer camp, I had 2 students in the camp that are both my private voice students. So whenever we did voice class, we did voice the first thing in the morning at 8 a.m. So that for them is just super regurgitation. It's just like super basic reiteration. Like, we're teaching the extreme basics to everybody, because for the most part, like, none of these kids have ever touched an instrument before.
Right. Yeah. So you do have a good like balance between private students that have some knowledge versus the ones who don't have knowledge.
I wouldn't say it's a super strong balance, but like there's the one or two, and they're like kind of scattered. Mm-hmm. Like maybe one like already takes drum lessons, maybe one already takes voice lessons, and maybe one already takes guitar.
Okay.
And then the rest maybe are just kind of like, this is their first time ever here.
Ever at Music Academy. Gotcha. Yeah. Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, and I did actually bring up like to my boss, because I mean, it's like feeling exhausted with it from working all morning, and then I have that gap time in between.
Right.
And which I try to eat lunch and knock out my grind for my career, and then try to squeeze in a nap if I, if I really feel like I need to,
Yep.
or grab another coffee, whichever way works, and then get to work on average like around 4:30 in the afternoon, and then teach all the way until 8:30 or 9 o'clock
Yeah,
at
another
night,
4 hours.
and then
Oh, man.
and then go
Good.
home and sleep and do it again.
Right,
So-
yeah. Yeah, I have a cousin who they give him a lot of extended lunch breaks. So again, it's the same thing, same idea, dude. Works 8 to 12, 8 to 1, has like a 3-hour lunch break, then goes back and finishes off the day. I'm like, and in his case, it's a little different. And what I say for that is like, what a piece of shit. Like, that sucks. Like, I'd hate to have that schedule. And for me, in that case, I would quit. Now, the summer camp thing, it's kind of temporary. So, eventually,
is.
so at least you have that, which is good. But yeah, I think about that extended lunch. That's just to me, that makes it more rigorous of a day to get through. Because then you're there for 12 hours. You're essentially out for 12 hours and trying to do things in between. And one thing that me and Brian brought up last week was 10 to 7 shifts. I don't know if you ever worked 10 to 7 shifts, but I did in retail. Brian did in one of the bank systems that he was at some point early in his career.
Like 10 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, that whole midday shift, and we both agreed on how I can't stand it, because to me it just, you can't do enough in the morning, and you leave when the sun goes down.
And then you can't do enough at night.
And then essentially you feel like, man, like my day's gone.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. And Brian's was pretty much the same thing. And so his opposite was that he does much more work when he goes on the weekends, or if he stays late, he does way more work than when he works just 9 to 5 for a few months in a row. Like his production level just increases when he does the opposite. Because in his case, the context of opposite would be his boss is working 9 to 5, his colleagues working 9 to 5, and for some of the stuff that he has to do and some of the reports he has to do for the board, he has to go on the weekends sometimes, even Sundays, or even Sundays, and so that was his opposite of that. It's like 10 to 7. In your case, 12 hours, 8 a.m. to 8:30, 9 o'clock p.m. It's like, well, yeah, that is the day.
Yeah.
Like that is the day for the next 2 weeks or
Pretty
whatever.
much. Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, I guess this question and my answer, it's like, yeah, I just kind of wonder if we did the opposite for this summer camp thing, or if I kind of flip-flop my schedule around, would I have a more productive day, like a better, uses of my energy in certain time slots, where it's like some energies are better utilized. Would it be better for the students to have it at a later time, like, or better for the private students to have it at an earlier time? Yeah. Or, like, I don't know.
Man, that's a lot of variables that are interesting.
Lots of variables.
Yeah, I see. That's the whole point of these questions. I wanted to get into like kind of these weeds of stuff that we are experiencing, and of course it comes from like Tim Ferriss's brain, because these are his questions specifically. That's like, man, like some of these questions, they're angled for this type of conversation.
Yeah.
And that's something I talked about last week as well. That's why I called it an offensive pivot. We're moving. I'm trying to change the landscapeness in some ways, but to have these productive conversations of like, okay, man, there's a lot more variables that people can consider for themselves, and whatever personal things they're dealing with, whether it's work, personal life, and otherwise.
And then to even like be just a little more specific with it, like I was saying, voice is the first instrument we do. The first thing we do at the summer camps is we sing. And I brought this question up to my boss. I was like, just preface for anyone who's not, who is not trying to make a career out of singing like I am. Singing in the morning is terrible. It sucks. It's like the worst thing in the world. It's usually like it takes like 2 or 3 hours of being awake and talking and using your voice and warming it up, slowly and surely, and letting your body warm up, because your breathing is way different when you're asleep too. Yeah. Like it slows way down. I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Yeah. No, it slows down your heart.
Down.
Your heart rate is at its lowest when you're asleep.
There you go. So everything is super slowed down, and who hasn't ever woken up still feeling groggy?
Yeah. And that's exactly like, for people listening, like think about when you wake up, think about being groggy and how your voice sounds. Like try talking the first 5 minutes of being awake. It's hard. I don't. I journal. The first 5 minutes I wake up, I journal, and then I get my day started.
Yeah. So I mean, like the first thing we do is singing. It's like, like good Lord. So I brought it up to my boss. I was like, hey, it's like, what's the idea behind singing being the first thing? And it's like, well, we want them to, start out with like stretches and then just kind of vocalizing, just kind of wakes them up, gets them going. And he was like, I've thought about doing drums first, but like they still come in tired, and I want them to be able to concentrate on drums and like I want them to wake up, but I don't want them to still be like mentally not all the way there yet. Like I want them to be mentally warmed up by the time they get to drums too. So I was like, I understand the reasoning. I do. Like I get it. It just sucks.
Yeah,
we have to sing in the morning.
It's just like, man, yeah. If there could be a more optimal way of arranging what's going on first, second, third, fourth,
right,
until the day's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even something that Tim Ferriss talks about, and then Ryan Flaherty, who's a NFL, basically he trains NFL prospects, and what they talk about a lot is minimum effective dose.
Okay.
So basically doing the minimum that you need to be at your optimum. And in this case, I have to agree, we're vocalizing in the morning that's no minimum effective dose. Is there another instrument? Is can guitar be first, then vocalizing? So just some type of switch like that.
Yeah.
That's what I think about is minimum effective dose now. Because even when I'm training clients or if I'm training my cousin, I now use seats to make sure he only squats a specific distance. Like before, I was a very big believer in ass to grass squats and stuff like that, and now for the sake of injury and strengthening specific tendons and like your ACL, MCL, all that stuff, I only have him go to wherever his thighs, quads are parallel to the ground, like specifically 90 degrees, and that's it. So like that's an example of minimum effective dose where like in your case, voice, it's like it's a bigger minimum effective dose because you're encompassing drums, vocals, guitar, everything. And it's like, okay, what's the minimum effective dose to get the kids going and then trail into voice and then drums? Because it seems like voice and then drums or drums and then voice, like those two can be close to each other. It's just finding that best opening section of the day.
Yeah.
For the kids.
Maybe it's guitar. Maybe it's bass. Maybe
right.
It's
or bass. Yeah. Piano.
Yeah.
Ooh, piano. Man, well, piano can be kind of mellow. Like, I mean, depending on the songs that you're learning, but at least for the instructional part, I would think because the piano is pretty mellow, at least that's, as far as classical and like learning things.
I feel like piano would be a great instrument to start the morning off with.
And also, excuse me, because piano is also like your base of like your foundation of theory.
Yeah.
Maybe you could pitch that.
Maybe.
Like, hey, man. And that'll be your why. It's like, hey, boss man, what if we do piano because it's a foundation of theory, we can incorporate theory, and even if you do voice after piano, but at least you have how long are your segments? Like 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so you do 45 minutes, so that's already 45 minutes in, get in there, head into theory, and then go into voice. Or guitar and then voice. Either way. But yeah, maybe you can pitch that. Maybe it won't happen now because even some of the stuff that we're pitching at work, this is stuff that's gonna happen like August to the fall. It's a ways away, but at least we're talking about it now to start developing ideas to help each other. And in this case, it might not be this summer camp or the next one, but if it can be considered, and if you can give them a strong enough why, Simon Sinek, has a book about why you should find your why, And so in this case, like, hey, piano foundation, it's most people's first instrument, not second, but it's entailed in everybody's repertoire of instruments, no matter how many instruments they play.
Yeah.
And
you know what I'm just thinking about now? Like I'm realizing too, like, there's public speaking and singing are like up there in the top two lists of things that like make people the most terrified. Like singing in front of people and then and speaking in front of people, right? Makes everybody super terrified. And so like to have it be like the first thing where everyone is singing together in front of everyone, maybe not the healthiest way to start off the morning either.
Yeah, because that has a lot to do with morale. Essentially, especially for kids. We've been venturing into how important it is to teach kids because they're looking around to see who they can look up to, and morale thing. If they're already shaking by just being in the room, and trying to get them, hey, you can sing louder. It's like, no, I can't.
Yeah, and that's seriously a problem. Like especially with this past camp, like getting kids to just be loud. Like a few of them to be loud was such struggle. To the point where I was just like, okay, it's like I need you to just yell, just scream for me, please. And but yeah, it's hard to get them to do it because they're in front of their peers. And then it's the morning; it's the first thing they're doing.
throw them into the fire first thing in the morning.
Pretty much, which could be a good thing, but
Yeah, because I'm sure some kids adapt well. You
Yeah.
know, there's always those.
everybody's different.
Exactly. That's the whole point. It's like, it's almost like there's not even outliers anymore. It's just that, you know, everybody's different, and these kids, you know, they're, like I said, they're finding their way like everybody else is. All us adults that are trying to find our way as well, and we forget that. And yeah, interesting. Let's do another question. This question came up last week. It actually wasn't on my list. It's on the list, but it wasn't on my list to then give to us because I felt like we couldn't give enough content back because I don't own. Maybe you can now after I read it, but I know I can't. I don't own a business with employees. Brian is an employee, right? He doesn't own a business yet that has employees. So the question is, what if I let them, the employee or contractors, make decisions up to $100, $500, $1,000, etc. And some of the examples that we came up with was actually us being the employees, like Brian being in the banking system. You know, he deals with money all day, and they have so much leeway before the manager has to approve. Now it's different because he's in a specific department, but when he was a teller, you know, that's the example he gave. And for me, I was a key holder, you know, when I was working retail, and that's the example I gave. So I don't know you as an employee or now as an employer. And it doesn't maybe it doesn't even have to do with money, but making decisions. Now, if it encompasses, if you have examples with money, then okay, cool. But if not, then you know you can proceed.
So can you read the question again?
Yeah. So the question is, what if I let them, the employee or contractors, make decisions up to $100, $500, $1,000, etc.
So like from the boss standpoint, like with the band being my employees, like what would happen? What do I think would happen if you guys like had decision making abilities that like in financial range were $100, $200, et cetera, et cetera?
Like maybe it could be like a I was gonna say like a per diem, but maybe something to that effect where we have like some type of budget for traveling, and it's like, hey, it's not more what you guys think, but it's like, hey, for the first $500, you guys are free to make a decision. Now we're not there yet, and it's not even about about the money, but it's more of like giving the trust, giving the decision. That's the only thing. That's the only way I can think about it right now, as far as you, the employer, finding example of if we were on the road or something and giving us, say, hey, I trust you guys. We're making this decision, because essentially you kind of do it. And when you ask us for our opinions for like music content, so that'd be one example. I don't know if you can go from your angle, you can go into that if you want.
Huh. Well, I would hope if I gave you guys like that much amount of a per diem, I would hope that people would start, you know, investing it in better equipment to better fulfill the position, right? Whether it's like playing bass or playing drums or whatever, I would hope like better equipment would come into play so that we can enhance our sound and continue to like, you know, enhance the sound as an overall unit when we're enhancing our own individual sound and setup. So there's that. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Really the only thing that comes to mind at the moment.
I was going to say, yeah, that's interesting. Because I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking about like us traveling, and because honestly, I am still trying to think of like a specific scenario where $500 on the table is like, hey guys, you guys are responsible. I trust you. Now you go do that. Yeah, but yeah, I like that example though of like if we were on some type of contract agreement where basically like a salary type thing, you know, where you would give us, hey guys, you're on salary, you're gonna get this. I need you to then fulfill X.
Oh well, yeah. I guess at that point, if I had you guys doing a per diem, like everyone would come to my house and like work full time,
right?
Like, you know, or whatever. Like someone would be working on something. Like we'd probably be building drum risers for Gonzalez.
Yeah,
for Gonzo.
Yeah.
Like, you know, probably delegate at least 2 or 3 people to be working on building drum risers.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be a fun team project. Another team to look at getting some lights. Yeah. You know, like investing some money into some lights so we can have some lights and have basically a light show where we go.
So that's exactly the angle. So that's exactly what I mean. So like, okay, we need lighting. I'm giving you $500. Go find the best lighting you can get for $500.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Good.
Yeah.
Great.
So little things like that, building drum risers, anything to enhance what we do so that we can do it better, you know?
Yeah.
And turn around and sell more product.
Dude, imagine, oh man, because that just brings up like a whole like tale like production and how much people pay production teams to like get stuff for them. Like we just make all our own stuff.
Yeah.
And like it ties into like the Eagles when they made their own record label and like Death Row Records and all these West Coast like R&B rap. You know, because the reason why I bring them up is because I just watched that Tupac Shakur like movie. So like it's kind of fresh and like everybody wanting to do their own thing, and it's like man, like now it's gonna take some research to. Like in the building of a riser, you know, we want to be stable, right?
Yeah.
But the concept of making our own stuff would be so cost efficient too.
Yeah.
In the very long, you know, grand scheme of things.
Yeah. And then like other things, like you've become really good with like, well, you and Gonzo both have become pretty good with like editing video and like and editing audio and singing those together. So I'd like probably assign you guys to take care of some things with that. We'd be creating content,
our own
basically.
Content. Oh,
yeah.
Dude, we can. I mean, this is what excites me because this is the point of the conversation. Like this like excites the hell out of me because this is exactly the point that it makes me ponder. It's like like Gonzo has a GoPro. I have my phone. I'm gonna get a better camera, period, for vlogging, podcasting, and now essentially for content, and then just collaborate with Gonzo. And maybe we can start doing that ASAP, you know, starting the next show or next couple of shows. And essentially giving you the content so you can put it on your YouTube channel or giving us access to your YouTube channel. Either way, it doesn't even really matter. But the important part is the content.
Yeah.
Interesting. Continue. If you have any more, because we've talked about, audio, video, content, and then
equipment,
lighting, and not truss rods. What are they called? No, they're not truss rods.
I don't know what they're called.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because there's something. I don't know. I don't have balance beams.
Whichever way it is, it's like equipment,
yeah.
lighting equipment,
lighting
sound
equipment, all that together, and then drum risers in general. Because I like when the drums on a riser and then like the bass is right next to them. They have their own space.
Yeah,
I like that, and the way JJ and Gonzo like just do their thing now, like it's pretty cool, and it would be awesome to see like that.
Yeah, and again, like this kind of trails back to what I kind of was touching on earlier, whereas like money is the biggest fuel. It's like just throwing fire on gasoline for a music career. Yeah. When you got that, or matches on gasoline, or whatever the freaking analogy is. I don't know my analogies, people. So anyway. But that's pretty much what it is. So, I mean, just here's a question for you. Yeah. Like, if I paid you, $1,000 a week to come work for me, like, would you come to my house every day?
Dude, that I would quit everything.
Exactly. There it is. So, and I'm pretty sure other people would too. Yeah. So,
And,
it's basically, and take that in with consideration with not getting paid from shows. If I just paid you $1,000 a week,
yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. Yeah. And right now, I would say yes.
Yeah.
That my answer would be yes. And man, and the cool thing is like as we're talking, like there's potential for that.
Yeah.
And we're getting there. And it started with last night. People won't hear this until Thursday, but Friday night, June 16th. That's the beginning of then leading to this conversation on Saturday, and then moving forward.
Yeah.
Because even Gonzo talked about putting content together, but we need to actually delegate 2 hours together and put content together.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I have 3 screens in my house, in my office, I'm gonna call it my office/bedroom. Like I have space here now. We can actually like dive into it for a few hours and just get it done. Even knock it out in a day. That's usually my goal. Is not spending more than like 4 hours of isolated time on a particular project, because then either I get too caught up in the weeds, or I then get overwhelmed and I stop doing it. I just let it rest, and sometimes I go back to it, sometimes I won't. And lately, if I can spend 4 hours or less on something, even the podcast recordings, like that's been like where I feel comfortable for now, at least. So going back to this, $1,000 a week to produce, and then go play shows. Oh, hell yeah! That's definitely a hell yeah. That's so cool. You weren't here when I talked about how excited I am. So now I get to be here and hear how excited I am.
Dope.
And that's all I say is just how excited I am, because like it's just potential and opportunities that are here, and I see it, and we're talking about it, and it's awesome. It's just pure optimism, pure foresight of like what could be, and and my thing is like planting seeds now. So like as long as we're planting the seeds, grass grows. It doesn't matter how slow, grass grows.
Mm-hmm.
So. That's awesome. So when me and Brian went into this question, we kind of did the same thing. We kind of went off on a thing that I was like, man. By the time we were done with this question, I was like, I wasn't even gonna bring this up. So now when I'm having this conversation with you, I was like, it seemed like we could go in. And you bring up the equipment and then per diems of like a type of salary. Just opens up a scale of opportunity and possibilities to like look forward to in the future.
Yeah.
In the near future, not even far future, just near. I mean, it's gonna happen.
Well, and like it really comes down to like, okay, I'm giving you guys more money. It's like, what am I giving you? Some more value on your time. So I mean, that's all it is. It's just a big trade-off. So as to what we consider valuable.
Yeah. Speaking of valuable, so this is perfect transition. What do you spend a silly amount of money on?
Topo Chico. We just covered this.
Yeah, right. So we did, and my whole point of bringing this up is, and this is totally like secondary, because the way Tim Ferriss brings it up is like scratching his own itch to then could he create a product from this amount of money? Like he at the time he was spending a lot of money on supplements. So then instead of spending money on supplements, he then basically invested in his own supplement, which it didn't last long, but that's what he did. He's just for the sake of like, okay, I tried this out, and it led him to other career opportunities. But so Topo Chico, that'd be interesting because just to add more context.
Well, let me break it down to you this way.
Go ahead.
So let's think about this for a second. So I'm in a phase right now where I'm like just all about buying some freaking gear for equipment, for like to enhance my acoustic guitar sound, or for example, I really want to get this LR Bag Session DI pedal to enhance the sound of my acoustic when it's plugged in live to a PA.
Yes.
Right. So if that's going to cost me, let's just say hypothetically $200 about. It's probably a little more expensive in reality, but let's say just for the sake of the example.
Easy math, yeah.
Easy math, yeah. $200. Let's say I'm dropping $5 a day on Topo Chico. So, if I completely cut out Topo Chico, how long until I have, the $200 to buy the DI pedal I want to get?
Yeah, so that's an average of 29 to 30 days times 5. That's 150. A month and a half. Under a month. Oh, and even if it is a month and a half guaranteed, you will have that DI now. Like if you stop spending the $5 a day.
Right. So it's little things like that. Like I think that you're getting to. It's like, well, if I cut back on this one thing that's really unnecessary, like I don't need Topo Chico.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. It's not a necessity for me.
Right.
So it's something I can cut back on completely.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how much more money would I have?
Yeah. And that's interesting because actually we didn't go off of this angle. Me and Brian literally went into like a product development like phase of talking, but I like this angle because it's different, and that's the whole point. So then next week when we tie in next week, it's gonna flow really well.
Yeah, and even like in the past week and a half or so, I got kind of obsessed with, not like obsessed, that's kind of a stronger word, but I got kind of fixed on buying scratch offs, $1 scratch offs.
Okay.
But I only let myself do the $1 scratch offs because I was like, nah, I don't want to go big. It's like, I'm gonna keep this relatively attainable.
Yeah,
so
sure.
So if I have like an extra $1 laying around, I'm going to use it to buy a scratch off. And well, obviously, like most people probably, I've lost more times than I've won.
Yeah.
And so, well, today I finally won.
Nice.
And but it's been like a week and a half of me buying scratch offs like every other day. So all in all, I probably spent like at least $15 like doing scratch offs like in the past like week and a half. Yeah. Like maybe 10 to $15 in the past week and a half on scratch offs. So. Anyway, well, I finally won today, and the first one I won was $2. So what did I do? Is like I went and traded it in for 2 more scratch-offs. Like I'm going to take the risk and try to increase the value by winning a bigger prize, right?
Yeah.
So then, well, on the next one that I got from those winnings, I got one that got me $5, and I was like, okay, great, I made a profit of $4 today. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm really in the red. So
you're still in the red.
Still in the red.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. Like, well, if you can cut back on it, and it's not necessary, then how much money could you be saving to get something that you actually need?
Yeah.
So
That's and tying because I just mentioned how or a while ago where I was telling my cousin like I can't do this on my own. I need your help. And we're actually doing the same thing now. Where I'm like okay, half of whatever your parents give you, half of whatever I get, like because like I said, we need equipment. And we're now setting aside that money so that we do have some spending money, but at least we're putting away some so that we can get this equipment before July, because July's gonna be here quick and we need it. At least my goals for him, like time's moving pretty rapidly, so we need.
Yeah.
So we are doing that cutback, but I didn't think about cutting back like that necessarily. I like your angle. I like the angle you brought up.
Sometimes I've seen a lot of people like acquaintances I have on Facebook that are still living in Nashville complaining about, the. Not saying like deadbeat argument because it kind of has some validity in some points, but for me it still doesn't have a ton of validity.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole like I can't make a living off of minimum wage kind of thing kind of really pisses me off more than anything.
Yeah.
But I see some people on my social media news feeds popping up like it's like, oh yeah, I'm going one job, then I'm going to the next job, and I'm barely going to make rent this month. Yeah, I get it. Been there.
Yeah.
Been there totally. But I mean, what can you be getting rid of to help you out a little bit? Like, if you're like down in the dumps, like, man, like I know for me, I've got a lot of Pearl Snap shirts I'm not, utilizing that I'm not wearing. Right. I wear like the same cycle of clothing lately as I'm sure like most people go through phases of their clothing, weaving in and out of stuff. So garage sale, easy fix, flea market, easy fix, eBay, something, sell it, get rid of it, make some quick cash, pay a bill. Get you by another month,
Yeah.
But it's little things like that, I feel like. And I mean, I'm totally a hypocrite talking about all this because I don't do this like in the best way at all. I'm the worst example of this, but I know like in reality, like this is probably what I could be doing to make my life a little
and
bit
maybe
better.
now that this is another point. Is like hopefully now that the seed's planted, and let's say you buy one Topo Chico instead of two. And like whatever money you would normally spend on the two, then you save that money.
Yeah.
So out of the $5 for 3 Topo Chicos, let's just say, you're gonna save $3.50.
There you go.
And only save $3.50. Like because one thing this ties into exercising. This ties into a lot of things, and this is I talk about this a lot. Is you overwhelmed your mind, so then you get defeated.
Yeah.
And that's why like in this case it would be like saving $3.50 and only save $3.50. Let that be your goal and keep it as consistent as possible.
Yeah.
I'm working on the same thing myself, because lately I've been spending money on food just to eat, but like where I could come home and eat, I don't, because like I want it now. I'm hungry now, but then now trying to get this music equipment set up, like I need put the money away first, and whatever I have after, then I can spend after that.
Yeah.
One thing Jim Rohn talks about. As far as like writing down your goals and having short-term, long-term goals. So I've been doing this now, I think, for 10 days straight. And I won't write down goals every day, but I have as soon as I heard this information, I then wrote down whatever goals, because he said big or small. So I then wrote them all. I then categorized them: economic, things I want, and personal development. And then I was able to do short-term, long-term. So short-term, one at a time. So maybe starting like that, like what do you want so bad that you're willing to sacrifice something? Because I think that's a big thing that, and Tony Robbins talks about this, is you need to besides incentive, what result do you want? And whatever that is it strong enough to get you to not necessarily quit a habit, but help filter better to then help whatever fund or whatever thing you do really want.
Yeah.
And I'm dealing with the same things. I think about it more on a daily basis right now because it's so fresh for me, and I've been talking about it all week, and again this right now for this episode. But what do you want so bad? And if you want that, if you quote unquote really want it that bad, then it should be a little easier to just cut back those. And let's say, for example, the $3.50 a day or whatever.
Yeah.
And then so let's go down $3 so it's easier with math. That's still $90 a month. $3 a day, and only doing that, not doing any more, not doing any less, and letting that capital raise and going from there. Man, a lot of things to think about.
Could really go down a long conversation with this stuff.
Yeah, it's cool because like this is also like the point of it too is like personal development. I mentioned this last week where I hope that these questions are then taken by the listener as well, as us, as we're talking about it, and this people getting perceptions of us, off of social media, because here we get to actually just talk and just converse, and some of it's opinion, some of it's like stuff we've seen, experience, and all that stuff. But again, reflection on ourselves so that we can replant those seeds in our brain. Like, hey, like okay, let's go back to the drawing board for the day and type it in. Because even Jim Rohn, he talks about like it takes like he says like his program at the time like they'd spend like 12, like they spend 10 hours in 2 days. So it's only 5 hours a day, but it's 5 hours of depth of like goals that you want and like seeing like mapping it out like thoroughly. So for me, I haven't done that. I've spent maybe like 30 minutes every other day or so, even less, because like man, like I kind of get caught up in my desk and it's like okay, I need to get out. I need to get out of here. But yeah, it's good stuff to ponder on, and I hope even with some of this reiteration, I try to give you enough context to get you going as far as like answering these questions, because like I said, I talked a lot about a lot of this last week, so I don't want to reiterate too much for the listeners. But that's all I got for today. Those questions. This is the starting point, because the goal is to continue this conversation and continue through these questions. Today we went through I think it was 4 questions total, and then we had good conversation. We still went just over an hour.
Have we done 4? I feel like we've done 3.
We did 3, and then I asked, have your dreams changed since college?
Oh, that's right.
So 4 total, and the whole point also, it's I believe it's like a Hemingway thing, where you don't want to dry the well, you don't want to tap the well.
There you go.
So with that in mind, I'm gonna reiterate this quote 'cause it's so good. I want so Eddie can also hear it. This is by I believe Jim Rohn said this. Setting goals is plain hard work. That's why a lot of people just let it slide. It's work. Many people work hard on their job, but they don't work hard on their future. They just let that slide. And the work involved is making plans. I know most people don't. I understand that. But don't let that be you. And that's a pure conscious reiteration because it's so good. And I made sure to write it down. Because for me, I wrote down the whole section because the last sentence wouldn't make sense, but I put, I understand that, but don't let that be you.
Man, that's such a great quote. And I remember like going through that in college, in like senior capstone courses and like in our senior songwriting courses even. Like one of our first assignments in like our senior songwriting level classes was like, make your business plan, write out your goals for the next 5 years. And when it came time to share it, like, the next class session when it was due, everyone's kind of like, well, I don't know. I mean, I just kind of want to write songs and make money, and but no like short term, long term. How am I going to do that?
Yes.
What's going to set that up? Mm-hmm. And but yeah, because that's absolutely right.
Dude,
it's hard freaking work.
It is, and my issue lately for the past 6 months since the year started, my main issue has been I have too many long term goals. I have too many things that I look forward to in 15 years. So the work I've been doing since June 1st, literally since June 1st, so 17 days, has been making more short-term goals to get me through. Because like the long-term goals, I know what I'm already doing to make those happen, to hopefully get those accomplished. But again, I have 5-year goals and I have 15-year goals. I don't have enough short-term goals. So I'm working on that. And one way I've been working on that is writing down in a journal every day. There's some questions on Tools of Titans that I take from Tim Ferriss, the way he journals. So I'm literally doing that so I can see, okay, what's today. Let me focus on today, and then periodically, like I said, I do think of let me something about the future. So then I write it down. I let that time be for the future. But like I said, lately I've had too many long-term goals where I do get like, man, like what do I just sit here and wait? I sometimes feel like that. So I've been working on my short-term goals, but yes.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Man, and it's so funny. Like I'm thinking about that now, short-term, long-term goals, whatnot. And I'm just kind of putting it in perspective of where I'm at with this. The album's finally released. Well, that's a very like short-term goal in the grand scheme of things, and it felt like it took forever to do. But in the grand scheme, it's a short-term goal.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice to think about.
It's the first piece to then the next piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's call it there. Like I said, I want to tap the well. Like we hit the points I wanted to hit, and you gave some good insight of your point of view, which then hopefully people will get to take away and learn more about us as we learn about ourselves, and then hopefully they then do for themselves. So if you want to give your social media.
Yeah. Get at me on Twitter, folks. It's at symbol, that A with the circle thing. At Eddie Signs 3, so EDDIESAENZ number 3. That's my Twitter. Instagram, it's the same thing, except between the Eddie and the Signs part, you're putting that underscore because it's like a prerequisite. Again, if you have an Instagram account, you've got to have an underscore.
That's true.
Feels like everyone has to have an underscore. Anyways, there's that. If you're going to look me up on Facebook, please check out my music page. You can just type in the link, facebook.com/EddieSignsMusic, EddieSienz Music. That should
Your
take
website?
You. Ooh, website's a good one. That's where you can find everything. www.eddiesignsmusic.com. And my online store is going to be coming soon. So
yes. I was about to say
get
that,
after it.
Yeah, I was say make sure you mention that because I know you're working out the final kinks to start shipping physical copies.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned where I have a couple of family members in California that want their copies, so we're working on it for you guys listening. Get on it. Don't get on it. Get that done, and then be out, stand by for Eddie's online store to be up and running officially. If you want to follow me, my Instagram and Twitter is AndyWalker_lead. And then my Facebook artist page, which, like I said, I'm now using that as a full platform to post about the podcast, any shows I have, any music, anything I'm researching, anything I'm trying to give. It's all on the artist page more than my personal page. And that one is facebook.com/AndyWalkerLeads. Then, if you want to follow my day-to-day, I've been trying to post as often as possible on my Snapchat. It's Andy Walker Lead. All together. Andy Walker Lead. That's my Snapchat. So, I'm going to leave you guys with that. I hope you took away at least one thing from this episode. And then if you need to re-listen to the other episode to get some more context, some deeper context for myself, go ahead and do that. And plan is next week we continue on these questions. We still have, I think, like 12 or 13 to go. So we're a ways into this. So I'm looking forward to it, and we will see you guys very soon.